What's going on, everybody? We're back. It's me, your boy, JD, in the house. It's week 10, college football. We're here to break down the entire main slate. As always, it's going to be a beautiful Saturday because there's football on our televisions. Fall is in the air. It was cold outside today for the first time since, I don't know, March. Really strange feeling, really great feeling. We got a full 14-game slate here. It's a good one too. There's some marquee matchups here on the slates. Very excited to break it down. With me, as always, my co-host Kevin. How we doing?
Good, man. It should be a great week 10. We got the Georgia-Tennessee game. It should be a great week. So I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah, and you guys can probably hear my voice. I'm not sounding the best. Kevin's going to pick up some of the slack here for me. So, no, I'm not hungover. If that's what you're wondering. Just not feeling great. Okay. Kentucky versus Missouri. First game on the slate. Kevin, why don't you go ahead and hit me with the over-under?
Yeah, it's pretty low. It's an over-under 40. So obviously we're not expecting a ton of points here. Both offenses are pretty blah, right? They just don't do a lot. On the Kentucky side, Levis has been terrible. I mean, I think he had a negative last week. He's been brutal. So I really don't have any interest there. The wide receivers for Kentucky, again, they've been kind of blah too. Robinson came back last week, didn't do anything. So I just don't think I'm going to get there on any Kentucky guys, as maybe Rodriguez, but he's pretty pricey. I think he's 6.8. So I just don't know that I'm going to have much interest in any Kentucky guys. And Missouri kind of muddies it up when they play too. To me, they're similar to a Kansas State. They just muddy the game up. I generally don't like playing guys in Missouri game. You had a Kentucky team that does the same thing, and I don't have a ton of interest. Quite honestly, the only interest I might have in this game is at running back for Missouri, Schrader. I'm sorry. Hold on. Where am I at?
4.4.
Yeah, Schrader. Yeah, Schrader, 4.4. He's actually coming on, right? He had 22 carries last week. I think he's taking control of the backfield, but who knows, right? But at 4.4, he could be in a decent spot. He could easily get 100 and a touch. So he's definitely an option as far as a cheap running back this week. But other than that, I don't have much interest.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's not going to be a lot for me. Missouri's defense, like going back to the beginning of last season, they were absolutely terrible against the rush, and they've just gotten so much better since then. Like, they're actually pretty solid in pretty much every metric I'm looking at. They're 5th in line yards defensively and 8th in stuff rate, which you would have told me, this point last year, you would have told me that. I would have said that's absolutely insane, but that's the case. So Chris Rodriguez is going to get a heavy workload, but I can't really trust it. So if you want to play him in cash, I guess you can go ahead. And then I agree. I think Schrader's probably the best look on Missouri. But again, Kentucky's defense is pretty solid overall. Yeah. Everything I'm looking at here, 11th in rushing success rate, 22nd in EPA against the pass. That's just pretty good on all levels. I do think Dominic Levet at 4.9K could be worth a flyer in tournaments because he caught 10 balls a week ago against South Carolina, 28 fantasy points. And I know he was dinged up before that. Like against Vandy in Florida, he was dinged up, and there was a chance he wasn't going to play in a few of those games. So with him returning to health, it looks like he's been pretty solid. I just think the price is pretty low. It's an ugly game environment, but that's just not a good pricing in my opinion.
Yeah, that's another case where DraftKings has basically the number one wide receiver on the team priced below the number two. Burden, everyone loves Burden, 5-star kid, stud recruit, but he's not their number one. If you're looking for a number one, Lovett is. So
I've heard more about Burden's cryptic Instagram posts and not getting the ball than I have about him on the field. He's a great player, but yeah, him being priced above Lovett just makes absolutely no sense. All right, moving on. Florida versus Texas A&M. Hit me, Kevin.
Yeah, again, another one with an over-under of 55 and a half. So a little more scoring. A&M's a 3.5-point favorite. Florida has looked abysmal this year. They just don't look good. They look horrible defensively. And offensively, they don't look very good either. So I don't know that I'll get there on any Florida players. Richardson is always interesting because he has the ability to run for 200 yards because he's a freak athletically, but they don't use him. Napier doesn't use him the way you think he would. I think I saw something the other day that in the last 4 games, he's had 5 design runs. That's all the guy can do. He's not a passer; he's a runner, but they don't design anything for him. So I don't think I'll have any Florida interest.
Yeah, I think I'm going to play a little bit of Anthony Richardson. Obviously, in tournaments, he's 5.8K. He's just really cheap, and he has a great rushing upside. So you can't bank on it, of course, because they haven't been using him. But Texas A&M, they're 122nd against the rush per PFF. They've just kind of been gashed, and Florida doesn't really have a lot going on for him other than running the ball. So I think in tournaments, I'm probably going to play some Anthony Richardson. I am not very enthused about the state of the wide receiver room, however. Sounds like Justin Shorter, one of their top wide receivers, is truly questionable for this one. Not sure if he's going to play or not. And then Keon Zipperer, their top tight end, he said he was out for the year on Facebook, and then he deleted that post 20 minutes later. But either way, yeah, we're doing the stocking this weekend, folks, or this week. But it sounds like Zipper is not playing. So either way, could be without 2 of his top targets, which obviously you don't love. But the price is just phenomenal. Florida running backs, we don't really play them, do we, Kevin? There's too many mouths to feed.
Not at all. It's literally it's the 50-50 club, right? It's a 50-50 split. So there's no interest for me.
Yeah, I agree. And then Naquan Wright even siphons off some in the passing game. So too much going on there. All right, what about Texas A&M? We have some very, very low prices here. Maybe do we actually have an offense now?
I think we do. It's they're showing signs of life for sure. So they've always had Devin Achane, and now it seems like they may have some other pieces, right? So I actually have a lot of interest in A&M in this one because, first off, Florida's D is terrible. It's just terrible. And Weigman, the freshman that started last week, he went off, right? He had a great game. He had 338 and 4 passing, and he's 5.4. So on a slate where I'm not in love with many quarterbacks, he should have a really good value at that price. And if you are playing him, obviously he has two really good freshman receivers, Evan Stewart and Moose Muhammad. The interesting thing is they're both similar production wise. Both had really big games last week with Weigman in there. But Moose is 4.7 and Stewart is 6K. So you're getting very similar production for $1,300 discount. So I could see playing both for sure. Me personally, I'm probably going to have a little more Moose just because he's cheaper. And honestly, he seems like he's more of a deep threat. He just seems like gets in the end zone a little bit more. But obviously, if you're looking at A&M, we're looking at their running game, and Devin Achane, he's been a beast. He's one of the fastest guys in college football. He catches a lot of passes this year, and he's 5.5K. So we talk about the pricing algorithm every week, JD, and this week it's brutal. Like 5.5K. Are you kidding me? Against the Florida rush D that is 116 against the run, and in 8 games they've given up 19 rushing touchdowns. So what do you think Achane's going to do? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, 19 rushing touchdowns on the year. That's not good. Yeah. Not good, folks. There's some fantastic running backs on the slate. Me and Kevin will talk about that. The pricing is so bad on the running backs. It's kind of about who you want to play. And Achane's he should be in the 7Ks, right, Kevin? Like, this is not even close.
For sure.
So it's a fantastic matchup. Florida defense terrible, 121st in success rate. It's hard to trust Texas A&M because they have a true freshman quarterback. Okay, pretty much all their wide receivers are hurt except for the young kids, and I think 3 of their starting offensive linemen are out, I believe. So it's hard to trust them. But this is a fantastic matchup. It is at home. The quarterback does look better. Overall, I think that's fantastic. Evan Stewart's a little pricey for my blood, but he's just been targeted a ton. So at 6K, that's a fair price. It's not that he's pricey. It's just that he's finally actually received a price jump. And then Moose is just way too cheap at 4.7K. Like, the wide receiver room is hurt. They don't trust the other guys behind them. They aren't really playing them. They aren't really targeting them. It is those 2 in the passing game, and it looks like they actually have a solid quarterback at 5.4K. I know Ole Miss's defense isn't great, but he looks really fantastic. So at 5.4K, you can pay down for those. So I think all 4 of those guys are in play. A Texas A&M stack isn't really my favorite thing to do because I don't know if they're any good, but they're playing at home. Sure, they could score 35 points in this matchup and really hit on some value. All right, flipping it over to the Big 12, Texas Tech versus TCU. Sonny Dykes. Apparently, his dad was named Spike Dykes, former Texas Tech coach. That's a big storyline this week.
Yes.
Anyway, what are we thinking here?
So it's the Big 12, so we're going to see some points. So the over/under here is 69.5, so 70 points. So obviously Vegas thinks we're gonna see some points, which we always do in a Texas Tech game or a TCU game. Neither one really plays much D. Texas Tech or TCU is an 8.5-point favorite, which is about right. So, but also what that says is Texas Tech is going to keep it relatively close, and they're going to score points too. So on the Texas Tech side, the kid Morton looked awful last week, but then again, Shao came in, he looked terrible too. And Smith, he is terrible. So I think they still roll with Morton. I like his price a lot. He's 6.7. Should be in a game where he's throwing the ball all over the place. So I think you can do worse than going back to the kid at 6.7. I don't really have any interest in Texas Tech running backs. I don't play them. Again, they're in the 50-50 club too. They rotate, so I really don't play. I won't play Boyd. I won't play Sadaric Thompson, who's been there for 12 years. No interest. The wide receivers, again, it's the same question you have every week for the wide receivers with Texas Tech. Who's it going to be? Miles Price came back last week. I think had one target, but they were terrible, right? They got blown out. So I don't think you could take much from that. So I think obviously Price has, sees a lot more targets this week, but he's hard to trust, right? They're all hard to trust. I personally think Xavier White is I'm going to say he's better. I think he's better than Miles Price. I think Miles Price was overrated to begin with, and he hasn't shown it, and I know he's been hurt, but Xavier White just looks like a better receiver to me, and I think Morton has a bit of a rapport with him. But again, you can't trust him. It's more of a dart throw for a tournament play. So that's what I'm looking at for Texas Tech.
I think that makes sense in tournaments because TCU's been in so many shootouts, and this is a Zach Kitley offense throwing the ball all over the yard and air raid. Everyone's going to be off of them last week against Baylor, and I know Baylor's defense hasn't been amazing, but that is a Dave Aranda team there. So if they got better defensively as the year went on, nobody at all should be surprised. TCU, they rank 125th in explosiveness overall, 128th in passing explosiveness. That's not good news when you're playing Texas Tech. And I know none of these guys are trustworthy. They're dart throws. At one point, Kevin, last week, they brought in all three of these quarterbacks on three different drives. All three of them threw a pick.
Yeah.
They tried them all. They all were not good. I actually think Shuck, he's returning to health. I think they actually could start him in this game. It's a big mess. I think it's between him and Morton. I agree. I think Smith's kind of out of there. They keep saying, Kevin, like we were talking about, they keep saying they were going to use three quarterbacks, right? And they never did. And they finally did. And now that has me scared because Shuck is actually healthy.
Yep.
So, or pseudo healthy. I agree with the wide receivers. Miles Price, I don't think he's healthy with the ankle. I don't think he's healthy. So that makes him a tournament play only. He could catch 10 passes in this game, and he could still not be healthy and catch 2. I agree with you. I think the two slot guys in this offense are going to be the most interesting because the outside guys have time and time again had time to prove themselves. That, of course, being Jaron Bradley, Cleveland, and Fonji and Sparkman. Just all these guys rotating in, just really haven't gotten their shot. I guess Cleveland's been the best of them all. Bradley's just been so hit or miss. It's crazy. Overall, it's absolutely impossible to trust any one of these guys.
Right.
All right, looking at TCU, where are we thinking, Kevin?
Yeah, so TCU, it's a lot more trustworthy, right? You know where the points are coming from. Dugan's been an animal all year. There's no reason he won't light up Texas Tech. So obviously he's a good play if you want to pay up for a quarterback. He's certainly worth it. Running back wise, Kendre Miller. I love Kendre Miller as we both do. Again, his price doesn't move. So the previous week, he had 29 carries. Last week, he only had 12 carries, but he still had 100 yards and a touch because he breaks one every game. So give him 15, 18 carries. He's going to have $120 and 1 or 2. So he's still a good price, a good play at that price. So I don't mind it at all. Wide receiver wise, obviously Quentin Johnson is their alpha. He's a stud. He's a freak physically. He's not the most consistent guy, although he's been more consistent over the past 4 or 5 games. So again, you want to play him It's absolutely fine in a high scoring game. I'm not going to play any of the ancillary receivers because they're way too inconsistent. One week it's Tay Barber, one week it's Savon Williams. It's just not worth it, right? They have TCU has the big three, and that's what I stick with.
Yeah, I agree. It's the big three. Kendre Miller, I mean, last week, it is weird. Like, you can't trust his usage. He's a Sonny Dykes running back. You have to, at the end of the day, go back to the scheme. But he's fantastic, and his price doesn't move. I love Kendre Miller. Texas Tech, 113th nationally in rushing explosiveness. You said Kendre Miller breaks one every game. Yeah, he's probably going to break one here or two. I think he's a fantastic play. Probably my favorite play. I'll go back to Q Johnson every week. At 7.4, it's really annoying. His price keeps going up. I did not like that he was clearly playing through an injury to his ankle last week. Happened very early in the game. Did not look good. Came out, went back in, injured it again, went back, came back in. It just wasn't really a good thing to see, but he was still getting targeted deep. And then Max Duggan, of course, at 8.5K. It just seems like he's going to score 30 fantasy points every week because he's a Sonny Dykes quarterback with a potentially top 10 draft pick at wide receiver who is built like a linebacker and runs a lot. Yep. So that's just that's the recipe for success right there. Speaking of successful fantasy quarterbacks, North Carolina taking on Virginia. Tell me all about it, Kevin.
So last year we would have been loving Brennan Armstrong, and nobody even knew about Drake May, obviously. But this year it's a bit different, right? So that's over under 60.5. So there'll be some points for sure. North Carolina's a 7-point favorite. Drake May, if we'll look at the North Carolina side first. Drake May's just been a stud. I mean, he's just been great. And the beauty about him is he quietly runs for about 60 yards every single game. He has 12 to 14 carries for 50 to 65 yards every game. And it's just that added bonus that you don't even, you don't really take into account, but it's an extra 6-7 points every week on top of, what he throws for. And that offense is built around him and his receivers. The running backs, they rotate 3 or 4 guys. No interest there. They just don't, they rotate too much. But he's got 2 studs at receiver. So he's got obviously Josh Downs. We all know about Downs. He's rounding back into form. He's 7.8K. So, a fine price. His price isn't awful. Last week he had 11 for 102 and 2. That's what he does. The other guy is Antoine Green. Green's been really, really good. Actually, the last 4 games, you could, when you look at the numbers, you could argue that that Green's been better than Downs. And he's 6K. So you could stack, honestly, you could stack both with Drake May. You could stack one or the other. Just depends on where you want to go. The only thing I will say is Virginia's been pretty good against the pass. So I don't know if this is a letdown game or a game where May doesn't go nuts. But he certainly has potential to go nuts. And like I said, the receivers are really good. So just, depends how you feel on that one. I don't know how I feel on this one. I can go either way. I could see May having a monster, and I could see May going 260 and 2. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, Virginia's defense has been really good.
Yeah,
and it's the ACC, so I don't know how much to read into it, but they have been good. They are 3rd in tackling per PFF, 6th in coverage. Like, those are some top 6 marks. Overall, I just think they haven't played a quarterback as good as Drake May, because Drake May, oh my God, like, he might be the best quarterback in the country. Like, whoa, I know we haven't seen a lot from him, but this kid's really good. He's big. Yeah. He's athletic. He's awesome. Oh my God, what was his brother's name? Luke May. This is Luke May's brother, by the way. Those of you college basketball guys. Yes, that is his brother. I think him and Antoine Green, if you're playing them, you're probably stacking them. Antoine Green, like, just blow up potential. Like, look at those average yards, right? 50 yards per catch, 31 yards per catch, 28 yards per catch, 18 yards per catch on 10 catches. That is insane. But yeah, I am a little scared of the matchup. So I think May is obviously fine. He should probably be priced 9.5K, and he's not. I said last week, right? Bo Nix is the best fantasy quarterback since Bailey Zappi, and Drake May might have something to say about that, to be perfectly honest. The issue is, of course, Nix just has a way better matchup in the spot against Colorado. All right. North Carolina's defense is terrible, Kevin. So are we considering any Virginia run backs?
It is, but the Virginia offense it might be worse. It's equally terrible, if not worse, right? So Much so, Tony Elliott fixed the Virginia defense because that was abysmal last year, but he absolutely destroyed the offense. It went from being a Lamborghini to a I don't even know. Just it's brutal. Brennan Armstrong has 6. Does he have 6 passing touchdowns on the season? I think that's what he has.
Oh my God, he does.
It's awful.
What have they done to my boy?
they just destroyed him. So I know it has a great matchup against North Carolina, but I don't know if I can play him. I just don't think I can do it. And the crazy part is he has 3 really good receivers, right? He has Thompson, he has Wicks, he has Davis, the kid that's the 6'7" kid. So he's got weapons, and they just refuse to use them. They've absolutely destroyed this offense. So even though it's a great matchup, I don't know that I'll play any of them. It's really hard to play them.
Yeah, what they've done to this offense is a disgrace. I mean, you can make a case for these guys, but at the end of the day, I mean, North Carolina's defense is terrible. They've actually looked a little bit better lately. I kind of feel yucky saying that because, of course, they could go right back in the tank. Paris Jones, the running back, sounds like he is probably not going to be able to go this week, according to this lovely name, Jackie Franciulli is how I'm going to say that. So even when I might be interested in the running backs, that makes me not interested because I do not like their backups. Mike Hollins, it was hilarious. The quotes they were giving about this guy in the offseason, Kevin, they were just straight up like saying, he's not playing well enough. He needs to do better. He's not capitalized. Like, it seemed like they were trying to fire him up, right? So I'm like, well, okay, maybe he's just actually, maybe he's really talented. They're trying to fire him up and he's going to be the starter. And then they just haven't used him at all. So I think they actually just kind of hate him. So I'm not going to be playing him. Armstrong can run, but yeah, if you haven't thrown more than 1 passing touchdown in a single game against an FBS team, I won't be playing you in DFS. All right. Minnesota versus Nebraska. Kevin, Nebraska. How we doing as a Nebraska fan? Let's check in.
Not well, right? So last week, Nebraska got run over by Chase Brown in Illinois. Well, guess what's going to happen this week? It's pretty predictable here. Minnesota, obviously, Mo Ibrahim. Minnesota, the only interest you have anywhere on Minnesota is Mo Ibrahim, and it begins and ends with Mo, and then ends with Mo. He gets 30 carries a game. PJ Fleck doesn't care. He pounds him. He doesn't even bring Trey Potts in much to spell him. He just pounds Mo every drive. So I think Mo, obviously, and so last week Mo was 7.3. He went nuts against Rutgers. He's going to go nuts again this week against a bad Nebraska rush D. He's still 7.3. So he's as close to a lock play that you'll have on any slate. And the caveat is in tournaments, he's going to be really highly owned. Like in the 50K tournament, my guess is he's going to come in around 45%, maybe 50%, maybe even higher. He's going to be insanely owned, but it's, his floor, I think, is 150-2, and his ceiling is 250-3 against Nebraska. So yeah, obviously love Mo.
It's just such a bad price. Nebraska's been really bad against the rush, 110th in rushing success rate, 102nd in PFF's rushing defense grade. Their defensive line's not good, 121st in Havoc. I just don't see it. I really don't see it. Minnesota should line up 14th in line yards, and they should hand the ball off to Mo Ibrahim 45 times, walk out of there with a dub.
Yep.
Sometimes it's that simple. Tanner Morgan actually was back under center last week. So at least they kind of have their starting quarterback back, even though he's not very good. But yeah, with their best receiver out for the year, I'm not going to target the guys against a bad secondary. Because again, if I was the coach, I would run the ball 60 times in this game. Fairly simple. It's a terrible price. He should be 10K and he's 7.3. It makes no sense. It's actually kind of frustrating because you start your lineups with the decision, play Mo or not play Mo. I mean, yeah, I think you play Mo. If you're playing tournaments, obviously you're not going to go 100% if you're making so many lineups, but you're going to play a lot of Mo Ibrahim because it's probably stupid not to. Okay. And if you're playing cash and don't play Mo, ooh, I don't know about that. All right. Nebraska. Any run backs for Nebraska, Kevin?
Absolutely zero. So Casey Thompson is hurt. He's probably not going to play. Purdy is awful. Whether he plays or he's hurt too, but whether he plays or not, he's terrible. Smothers can't throw a lick, so that absolutely kills Trey Palmer. You saw what Trey Palmer did last week. 1 catch for 1 yard. Was it 1 for 1?
Yeah, baby. One catch, 1 yard.
Right? After having a 50 burger the week before against Purdue, or 2 weeks before against Purdue. So Trey Palmer's value is in the toilet right now. They don't have anybody that can even get him the ball. Anthony Grant is hurt at running back, so they have nothing. So 0 chance I play any Nebraska guys, and quite honestly, I think there's a good chance they get shut out.
Oof, calling for the shutout at home.
I could see 31, 38, nothing easily.
Yeah, I mean, this should be a very boring game. This should not be an exciting game. I mean, Trey Palmer, he's been elite at times this season. Will I be playing this week? Probably not. Did I play him last week? No, thank God. But yeah, I guess you could, because he's had a pretty good usage. But we don't know who the quarterback's going to be. All right, moving on. We have Ohio State's always one to have a nice say on what's going to happen on the slate, right? They carry a lot of weight when they're on the slate, and it seems like they're almost always here. Sounds like we might have some weather, even though they're playing a terrible Northwestern team. That is a factor. So, Kevin, tell me about that.
We do. So I'm seeing about a 50% chance of rain, which is okay. But I'm also hearing major wind gusts, like 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts. And obviously, we know that's a problem when it comes to passing. So in a game where Ohio State's a 38.5-point favorite, this could be a lot of lineup and run Meatball Williams, because he's supposedly going to play this week, even though he got hurt last week. They say he's available. Travion, and they could run the third-string kid, Dallas. Is it? What's his? Who is the third?
Fleming?
Yeah, Hayden. So they could even run Hayden a little bit, right? So I think this is a game. If you look at CJ Stroud, he's 9K every week, and every week I want to play him and I want to stack him with his 2 stud receivers. But he hasn't been real good. He's been under 22 points or under in 3 of his last 4 games. Really, if you look, it hasn't been good. Certainly not worth the price. And with the wind, I don't think he's worth the price this week. I think I'm going to stay away from Stroud. I think they're going to pound the running game. That said, they have 2 stud receivers in Harrison Jr., who's a freak, and everybody pretty much agrees he's the best receiver in college football, and in 2-3 years is going to be one of the better receivers in the NFL, right? Just like his dad. So had a big game last week, could have a big game again, but the wins really scare me, and I think this could be a game where they pound the football and get their running game back in a groove. Egbuka has been really good this year, had a poor game last week. Again, I don't know with the win, so I think I'm probably going to fade the Ohio State wide receivers and quarterback, and if I'm playing anybody, it's their running backs, but that got ruined a little bit too, because I was hoping Meatball would be out, and then you play Travion at 6.4, but that doesn't look to be the case this week. It looks like they're both going to play, so I actually think I'm going to fade Ohio State, which is crazy against Northwestern, but that's what it's looking like to me.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to have a ton of Ohio State either. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to tell you not to play them because it's a fantastic matchup. I just think monitoring the weather super closely, and this one's important because we haven't talked very highly about a lot of receivers on the slate, and we probably won't. Like, I'm not in love. Like last week, there were like 8 receivers I wanted to play. This week, it's like, God, do I have to play any of these crappy guys? And then like Julian Fleming's 4.9K and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Kevin did a good job calling that one out last week, saying he's clearly not healthy. And you were right when you're watching that Iowa game. Yeah, there was a pass in the corner of the end zone. And he came up kind of lame, and then they, after the game, tried to say it was a snap count thing. So good job calling their BS on that one. He was hurt, didn't play last week. I think they're all fine. Yeah, I too was wishing Meatball was out. I think Trey Henderson would have been the best play on the slate. It sounds like he's a hand injury. It's probably not super banged up. Trey Henderson could still go absolutely bonkers against this Northwestern defense at 6.4K. So I guess Henderson's my favorite play here. But obviously him, Stroud, the receivers are still in play. Nobody I'm going to be banging the table for this week other than Northwestern quarterback. I'm just kidding. No, F that. Skipping Northwestern, right?
Yeah, no interest.
Well, Evan Hull, he's a good running back. Any consideration at all? Any?
I don't think so. He's been really down the past 3-4 games. He started off great. He was phenomenal. He was catching so many passes, and now they're in their meat of this schedule, and he's average at best. So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could do it if you're stacking this game, but he's played 3 good defenses, and that's why he came crashing down to earth. 10 points against Penn State, 11 Wisconsin, 10 Iowa.
Yep.
Ohio State, pretty good defense. All right, Tulane versus Tulsa. We're headed to the American. Last week, we had the battle for American supremacy, but that might have been a bit overstated because Tulane is still there, folks. Tulane is still in the battle, led by Commander Michael Pratt. Go ahead and tell me about this one, Kevin.
So we have an over-under of 57.5. Tulane's a 7.5 point favorite. No weather issues, so we should be fine there. Tulane, I think they're ranked 19th, so they're in the top 25. So this is generally the game where Tulane comes in and lays an egg and then gets knocked out of the top 25, but we'll see. Michael Pratt, I love the price. That said, every time I play him, it doesn't end well. So while I like the price, I'll have some, but I'm not going to go overboard on him just because it doesn't generally end well for me when I do play him. I love Tyjae Spears. The kid he's really, really good. He's 6.1. He's playing a Tulsa rush D that's 124th against the rush, gives up 210 yards a game, 16 touchdowns in 8 games. I think he has a really high floor. So I will have a lot of Tyjae Spears. Like him a lot. We don't play Tulane wide receivers. That's a given. So the interest basically on Tulane for me is Tyjae Spears, a little bit of Pratt, but mostly Spears.
Yeah, Spears is definitely the top play. Tulsa's defense is good against the pass. Okay, 24th in passing success rate, 25th in coverage. So even though Pratt is cheap and he does run, that makes it hard for me to play him this week. I know there could be some points, so maybe some Pratt shares, but Spears is the obvious play. Tulsa has a bad rush defense, okay? 89th rush defense per PFF, 103rd in EPA against the rush. Spears catches the ball. I wish they would use him more in the receiving game. He had that one blow up against Houston and caught 5 balls against Southern Miss, was extremely effective. We could see there at 14 yards per reception in each of those games, and they just haven't really used him there. So I think this one, I think he has a pretty good floor, most likely. I know that Eastern Carolina game scares me. He's had some single digit games. So maybe he has a small floor, but I just don't really see how that happens here. I will point out that Tulsa's rush defense, maybe they're not quite as bad as it looks, because those are inflated by 2 really bad games. They gave 455 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns to Navy, which is really bad, and Navy hasn't been very good at all, but that's a triple option attack. That's way different than a traditional running team, even though I know Tulane kind of runs a weird pseudo option thing. And it's blown up by when they played Ole Miss, when they gave up over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Ole Miss can run the hell out of the ball. We know that, right? So other than that, they've been pretty solid. Jacksonville State is an FCS school that ran for 200 on them, but Jacksonville State's a really good FCS school. They're going to be FBS in no time. So overall, I don't think Tulsa's rush defense may not be quite as terrible as we think. But Michael Pratt's not really a quarterback you can totally load the box against either. So Spears, the price is a joke. I think he's fine in cash or tournaments is my long way of saying that. All right, going back to the Tulsa side, what are we thinking here?
Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to get there on anyone. So Bryn started out the season on fire. He's been terrible. I don't think I'm going to get there at all. There's no reason really to play him. Prince at 6.2 had a really good game 2 weeks ago. 231 yards and a touch. Last week he had 19 carries for 86 yards. That's probably what I expect again. So to me, he's just not worth the price. Receiver wise, Stokes, who's been there he's on a pension plan he's been there forever. He's their target hog. He's really been good. I think he's an okay play. I don't know that I'll pay up for him though. I have a hard time paying up for a Tulsa receiver. So probably not much interest. I'm probably only really looking at Spears in this game.
Yeah, Tulane's defense is at the point where I'm just going to trust them. They're doing this Virginia thing where they're going like from worst to first. Okay, sometimes it happens in college football. You can't really explain it, right? Like, so just give credit where credit's due. Credit the players, mostly credit the coaches because they've been doing a fantastic job. They're just phenomenal everywhere. Keelan Stokes has been the target hog. He's the one place I would look, and I just don't want to do there in this matchup. And then the running backs, they divvy up carries. Deneric Prince is just, he had a big game against Temple. It's Temple and Tulane. That's different stratospheres. All right, moving on. Baylor, Oklahoma. More Big 12 action. The Big 12 is back, right, Kevin?
It is, especially from a fantasy perspective, right? He's so we have a 61.5 point over under here. Oklahoma is actually a 3.5 point favorite. I know they say you get 3 for being at home, so I guess that's what they're giving. Because I think Baylor's a better team. I think Oklahoma is way overrated, and they pretty much prove it on a weekly basis. But if I'm looking at Baylor, I think it begins and ends with Dick Reese. The freshman has been an animal. They've been pounding him. His carries the past 2 weeks are 31 and 36 and 38 fantasy points and 40 fantasy points. He's just been on fire. And he's 6K against an Oklahoma rush D that we've seen all year get gashed. So again, this is one of the running backs that we talk about that the price is just a joke. I think Dick Reese is a great play in cash or tournaments. Tay McWilliams is out. Squirrels out again. Quaylon Jones, I did see a quote that they want to lessen the load on Dick Reese. But that said, even if they lessen it and they give him 25 carries, he's still going to have 150 and 2. So, yeah, for me, it begins and ends with Dick Reese. I don't play Shapen. I don't play their receivers. So that's the only place I'm going there.
Yeah, it's the pricing's so bad. Like, it's hard to know what to do with. Like, I think playing 3 running backs is I think I'm going to do that in pretty much every lineup, like at least 3. Oklahoma 88th in EPA per rush, 107th in rushing explosiveness. I know Reese isn't the most explosive player, but they've just been lining up and running the damn ball, and it's been working. They've been winning a few games. They started off not doing hot. They somehow got into a shootout with West Virginia. They said, listen, this is not going to happen again. We're going to line up and run the shit out of the ball. So Oklahoma's in a weird spot for me where I don't really know what to think of this team. Like, yes, they have been terrible, but you can see they have talented players, and Brent Venables, like, eventually the system's probably going to click. So I'm not really sure how to feel about this against the Baylor offense that just really isn't very dynamic. Like, maybe they just figure it out and stop the rush, right? Like, I could actually see that happening in a weird way. But the passing game for Baylor's, I just can't get there, even though Oklahoma's 92nd in coverage. Blake Shapen's just not throwing the ball enough. So in case, unless this one gets into a shootout or a weird thing, like, even then, I don't think Shapen has like the highest ceiling in the world. So maybe he could get you 20 points, but I just don't really see it. And the stacking options really just aren't interesting. Ben Sims is tight end at 4.3K. He's always liable to catch like 2 touchdowns and kind of go off for you. So I'll mention him because I think he's a really good player. All right, other than that, Oklahoma, let's turn it over to them. They've actually had a really good offense. Defense has been terrible, but the offense has been getting the job done. They're not priced quite to the moon like they usually are, Kevin.
No, they're down a little bit, for sure, but they're playing a decent Baylor D. And I just think there's better, more exciting options than Gabriel. Gabriel's okay. His price came down, but I don't think I'll get there with Gabriel. Eric Gray's been pretty consistent. He gets 20 carries a game, so I don't mind that. But again, his price is a little high for me. 6.9, it's a little high. And then we have our buddy Mims, right? Mims is 6.9 again. Just doesn't do anything. So I'm probably not going to have any Sooners. I just I don't think it's gonna be worth it this week.
Yeah. Like I said, Baylor's defense, they haven't been very good, but they've been getting better, and it's an Aranda coach team. So Oklahoma could definitely score some touchdowns here at home. Definitely could happen. I mean, West Virginia scored 43 points at home against this Baylor defense not that long ago. Okay, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's just kind of hard for me to see myself getting there. Gabriel's been very hard to read this year. He had blow up games against Kansas and Kansas State, and Kansas State has a really good defense. So, they're always liable to blow up. And 7.8K, one way to see this is you have a pretty good price dip on a slate where I'm not really in love with a lot of quarterbacks. I just don't like stacking Gabriel. I don't trust any of these guys whatsoever. Like, Mims is just turd after turd is what Marvin Mims has done in his fantasy career. And he's talented, and I get it. Yards per out run, he's so elite. Cool. I don't see the points in my fantasy lineups, and that's what I need. Okay. Not yards per out run. I need fantasy points to win money. Okay. Tennessee is playing Georgia. I hear this might be a big game, Kevin. Is this
a little bit? I hear the tickets are pretty pricey, so yeah, it might be a big one. Honestly, Vegas has this over under at what are they at? 66.5. So they're expecting some points also
in a Georgia game. Whoa.
Yeah. And Georgia's actually an 8-point favorite, which I think is a little high. I personally think Tennessee may win the game. This Tennessee team, when you look at them and you compare them, they have that look of that LSU team a couple of years ago with Joe Burrow, where they just go ballistic on people and they just outscore everyone. So 2 weeks ago, they dropped that game against Alabama, and I think this might be that type of team. If you look, they're very similar. Hooker, Burrow, their receivers, Chase and Jefferson. Then you have Hyatt and Tillman. So I think this is actually a good spot for Tennessee. And I think they're going to come in lower owned in tournaments than usual, right? Hooker is 8.1, or sorry, 8K. I think he's a great play at that price. I probably won't have any small just because Georgia's Rushdie is really, really good. He's been good, but I probably won't have him just because of the Georgia Rushdie. But I think they're going to exploit Georgia through the pass like they've been doing. And Hyatt is he's just been an animal. The guy's a monster, and 20 yards a catch. He has 14 touchdowns on a year. It's just been insane. And he's 7.1, which is a great price. And I think, like I said, I think he's going to be lower owned because of the fact they're playing Georgia. So the casual player that plays some lineups may be scared off. And I think that's where we take advantage a little bit personally. And then I love the fact that Cedric Tillman
Ooh, baby.
Right. He's supposed to be a full go this week. Last week, he was on a pitch count, but which I truly think was a pitch count. They didn't need him in the second half, so he didn't play. There's no reason to play him. But everything I read, he's a full go, and he's 6.1. Excuse me. 6.1 is crazy, right? So I like him a lot. I think you could play either receiver, stack either one with Hooker. I think they're going to put up plenty of points, and I think you're going to take advantage of people being afraid to play them against Georgia. So that's my spiel on Tennessee.
I like the spiel. I'm going to fact check myself before I say this one. Okay, yes, I was correct. Last year against Georgia, how many yards did Cedric Tillman have? 200. 200. 10 catches for 200 yards and a touchdown. So if you're thinking, no, they can't move the ball against Georgia, that Georgia defense was a lot better than this one. Yep. I know it's at Georgia. That's obviously scary. This is going to be a very good game. I'm excited. I think you hit on it well. Tillman in tournaments, I will be interested in. Hyatt, I don't see how you cannot be interested in him in any format. And Hendon Hooker's price remains too low, is what I will say. They're a fantastic offense. And even that Oregon game, okay, I'm being a little crazy. Oregon was moving the ball. Like, their success rate wasn't bad. Just Bo Nix made some freaking stupid plays. They turned, they couldn't get the third down. It's like they were moving the ball. It wasn't like they were absolutely completely, like, their defense got crushed. Their offense moved the ball. Their metrics weren't even bad after that game. So, yeah, Tennessee can move the ball. All right. Georgia, Stetson Bennett, 8.6K, lock and load him, right?
No, again, why do they price him up so much every freaking week? Bump him down to where he should be. He should be 7K is where he should be. And he's not. He's high 8s, and it's just crazy. So while I think Georgia's going to score, obviously they're going to score, I'm not going to pay for Stetson Bennett. I'm not going to pay for the running backs because they run 3 guys. Honestly, I love I love Bowers, Brock Bowers at 6.7. He is their best player on offense. And in a big game, I think he's going to get targeted 15 times. I think he's going to get peppered with targets. I like him a lot. So if you're playing the Hooker to Tillman or Hooker to Hyatt, and you want to bring it back with Bowers, I'm on board completely.
Yeah, normally I wouldn't love Bowers at that price, but like he's been that price. And I said last week, I'm like, I like him a lot. Like I took his over on Price Picks, 12.5. I thought that was easy money against Florida. And it's like again, how much are you going to read into his game log as a receiver who also blocks, who plays his ass off in a 55-0 game against Vanderbilt, in a 42-10 game against Auburn, right? It's like, come on, it's a different stratosphere than this game is. Like 6.7K. Tennessee's defense, we all know they stink. Where they really stink, I mean, they're pretty good against the rush. They have a good defensive line. Where they really stink, like, is in the secondary. Their safeties in particular take terrible routes, and like their linebackers can't cover. Like that's Brock Bowers' season. So I don't mind me some Brock Bowers. The running back room is a little dinged up. Sounds like Milton's going to play, so they're going to have 3 guys play. A good call on DeJuan Edwards last week, by the way. That was a very good call. He ate, as the kids would say. Other than that, A.D. Mitchell, their wide receiver, I like their receiving room is just really banged up. I'm not really sure they're going to fully take advantage of Tennessee. Last I checked, A.D. Mitchell did not practice. So, all right, the best fantasy quarterback since Bailey Zappi. Well, Drake May has a chance to prove himself this week. We're gonna see. Whoever has the most fantasy points this week is gonna retain the mantle. Bo Nix.
Yeah, I think it's time that we all give a public apology to Bo Nix. Every week we say how terrible he is, and every week he drops a fantasy monster. So last week he played a Cal team that, Cal's not very good, but I didn't expect. He dropped 6 touchdowns, right? He had 3 passing, 3 rushing. He is their offense. He's been great. I have to admit that he's been great, and he's a great option. I know he's expensive, but if you want to play him, go ahead and play him because he just puts up huge fantasy points. And interestingly, I believe he was in the winning lineup last week. So a lot of times those higher priced quarterbacks are not in the winning lineup. And Mr. Bo Nix, I believe, was last week. So you want to play Bo, go for it. He's playing a god-awful Colorado team. We know that. Wouldn't surprise me to have another 5 total touchdowns, 350 total yards. So yeah, but in Bo we trust, I guess.
Yeah, like I guess it's just whether or not you think this one's going to be garbage time. I wrote this one up for coverage.com this morning. Check it out. I took Oregon minus 17.5 in the first half. Like I don't know if the average fan knows truly how bad Colorado is. And Oregon's offense has been fantastic. They've been absolutely fantastic to the eyes and to the metrics. They're first in success rate, both in the running game and in the passing game. They're first in success rate in both. They're going to move the ball. Colorado's defense ranks dead last per PFF in rushing defense, coverage, and tackling. They're not going to stop Oregon. So it's whether or not Bo Nix even plays in the first half. I think they drop an absolute. I just don't see how they don't kill him. I don't see. Colorado is so bad. So bad. Like, I know Oregon's defense isn't great, so maybe like Colorado can just runs the ball, okay, and controls the clock a little bit, but Oregon should score every single time they get the ball. Even if they're not having a crisp game. So that's it for me. I mean, Troy Franklin's his top receiver pretty clearly, but again, they should have a big lead. So it's just a matter of whether or not he's really getting targets. Chase Code is out, but the rest of the wide receivers really aren't too interesting to me. Running back room remains a timeshare between Bucky Irving and Noah Whittington. Both are pretty good. Both are averaging 6.4 yards per carry, but that's the issue. Both of them are getting on the field. So I think Whittington is too cheap at 4.2K because he is used in the receiving game a little bit. And like I said, Colorado is the worst at tackling and stopping the run in the entire country. Colorado, shout out to Josh McCown's son. I don't know if he's going to play or not, though. He's hurt. Anything else in Colorado?
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't.
The top receiver is 3.6K.
Yeah, he is, and he had a. Well, actually, was he the guy that had the big week last week?
He had 12 points for Colorado. That's like,
No, the kid at 3.9, Jordan Tyson had 31 fantasy points.
Oh,
so
Mike
he had
Tyson's
5.
Son.
Yeah, he had 5 catches for $115 and a touch, and the previous week he had 3 for 92. So at 3.9, I guess you could do worse. I mean, it's worth a tournament dart, but that's about it.
Yeah, Oregon's secondary is not good, man. They're lucky Cal stinks because I was getting worried for a second watching that game. Of course, then they scored 28 straight points, but yeah, that Oregon's defense does need some work. All right. Oklahoma State versus Kansas. Oh boy, Kansas is back on the slate. You know what that means? Their defense is god awful. That being said, Oklahoma State scored a whopping 0 fantasy points last week. So what are we thinking here, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, we have basically 64 points. KU's a 1-point favorite at home, at home. As you said, they don't play any D, and actually Oklahoma State doesn't play any D this year either. So when their coordinator went to Ohio State, he kind of took the defense with him. They lost a lot, obviously. It's really hard with Oklahoma State. I know Spencer Sanders is banged up. I don't know if he's going to play. My guess would be he probably does, but I don't know. I don't know if Dominic Richardson's going to play. And last week they ran Nixon. I actually think Ollie's a better back. I think Ollie, the freshman, is better, but doesn't matter what I think. And then their receivers are all hurt too. So it's really brutal. Obviously, they're not going to score. They're not going to get shut out again. They're going to score points against Kansas. But where's it going to come from? It's a really, really tough play this week with all their injuries.
Yeah, the whole team is injured, and I said last week, Mike Gundy just straight up said he's not giving injury updates anymore. So there's really no use in talking about this one. Just check the pregame reports, see who's warming up, and take it from there. Kansas is terrible. So if the receivers are out again, Bryson Green, I love Bryson Green. He made the most insane one-hand catch last week. I think they might have overturned it, but just insane. Like he caught the ball with like his bicep and nothing else. Like monster. But like, yeah, the targets are not very safe. So good luck trying to figure that one. And then Stephon Johnson, the punt play last week only had 4 points. That wasn't very cool. But they did target him a lot. Oh my God, I think he should have had a touchdown. He was like wide open. Sanders threw a bullet, hit him in the chest. Whoa, didn't see him get targeted too much after that. So yeah, I mean, Kansas defense is god awful. Like, oh my God, like watch them. Go watch that Oklahoma game. Watch them try to tackle.
Yeah.
So you can play anyone once you get the injury reports. But other than that, yeah, trust me, I've wasted enough time trying to read Mike Gundy. Read between the lines on his interviews. He's doing nothing. All right. Other than that, Kansas as the run back. What do you think?
I can't really get there on any Kansas guys. Again, they're going to score points, but I don't know where it's going to come from. I just don't see it. I'm not paying 7.1 for Bean. I'm just not doing it. I'm not doing that.
Will Howard lit him up.
He did. Howard. I know. You're right. I guess, but 7.1 is awful expensive.
4 touchdowns against TCU, 4 against Oklahoma. Runs the ball.
True. All right. I could be talked into it, I guess. Yeah. Devin Neal. We love Devin Neal. Love his talent, but doesn't do anything fantasy wise. And the receivers, they throw to 3 or 4 guys. So maybe get there on Bean, but I don't. I'm having a hard time.
Yeah, I might get there on Bean a little bit. He runs. He's had some blow-up games. The issue is I don't like stacking him. Okay, the stacking options are just not very easy to tell unless you're just throwing a random dart in tournaments. Devin Neal, the running back, yeah, again, he's good, but he doesn't catch passes, so that's really not cool. I think Oklahoma State's defense is god-awful. I've been saying it every single week on here. 127th in explosiveness allowed, and Kansas is a top 10 explosive team. They're 129th in passing down PPA. That tells me their secondary is the worst. They are 123rd in passing explosiveness, so I mean, Jason Bean, I get it's ugly. I get it's like, who knows what the hell you're going to get. But I actually kind of like Jason Bean on Slate, where I don't really like any, because I think he is a very talented runner overall. I guess if you really want to stack somebody, Mason Fairchild, the tight end at 3.7K, I guess. Other than that, it's Skinner, Arnold, and Grimm. Good luck. Skinner's been like the blow-up guy of those. Again, when he had those 2 touchdowns against TCU, he didn't catch either of those. Those were both drops, but they called them both touchdowns. So I don't think he's a good player, but he's explosive, which I guess it's kind of like Kansas summed up a little bit. They're explosive, but not always very good. All right, Syracuse versus Pitt. Holy crap, this is gross. This is really gross. Tell me about it.
It is really gross. Over under 48, so Vegas is telling you it's gross. Yeah, just not anything really worth it. Schrader, neckbeard, he's I don't know if he's going to play. I don't think he's going to play. Their backup isn't very good. Obviously Sean Tucker, he's in contention every week. He's a great running back. He's a very good running back.
He's awesome.
Yeah,
he's awesome.
But he hasn't been great fantasy wise. I mean, I guess his price is pretty good actually. I like his price at 6.7 for sure. So I could see some Tucker interest. I always like Gadsden. He's their main target guy. The problem is I don't backup quarterback in there, and not that Schrader was much better, but I'm having trouble getting there this week. Pitt did just get lit up by North Carolina, but Drake May's a little better than these guys throwing the ball for Syracuse. So I don't know how much we're going to take from that. So Pitt is generally a decent defense. So I'm probably Syracuse-wise, probably would just be Tucker for any Syracuse exposure. I don't think I'll get there with anybody else for the Cuse.
Yeah, Tucker's always fine. Again, there's so many good running back plays. Like, I guess Tucker's one of them. I wouldn't list him at the highest end, but like he's there in any format. You never know if they're going to give him the ball or not because he had 5 carries against Clemson, even though he's averaging 10 yards per rush against one of the best defensive lines in the country. Then last week, they just I was just sad for Syracuse watching that game. I was sad. They did not look like a fun football team. I was sad for them. I think it was their first sellout crowd since 1980. So it's been like 42 years, and it was just sad. Their team is not good. They're banged up. Everyone's hurt. The quarterback got hurt. Their best cornerback, he tore something in his knee, I believe, so he's out for the season. It was sad. It was really sad to watch. Garrett Schrader, he always gets hurt. He was hurt. Who knows if he's going to play? They might have just pulled him because he was pretty bad. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell who's going to play. If it's Del Rio Wilson, their backup, I actually think this is kind of an explosive attack at times. But Pitt just overall is pretty good at suppressing stuff. Their defensive line has been the calling card of Pitt forever since Aaron Donald was there and well before him. They're 10th in line yards, 6th in stuff rate. That makes it hard to play Tucker, but again, his receiving workload is really what gets him there. All right, Syracuse, what are we thinking? Or sorry, Pitt, what are we thinking for them against the Syracuse team that just gave up over 40 points to Notre Dame?
Yeah, I mean, if we got to be looking at Abaconda, right, for 7.7, he's pretty highly priced, but he's been really good. He's been really good. So, excuse me, 3 weeks ago, he had 71 fantasy points when he ran for 320 yards and 6 touchdowns. So the next week he had 129 and a touch for 30 fantasy points. And last week he had 127 and 3 for 32 fantasy points. So overall he's been really, really good. And Syracuse got gashed last week by Notre Dame on the ground. Actually, they look so bad. They made Notre Dame's offense look decent, and Notre Dame's offense is bad. So that's how bad the Syracuse rush D was last week. The previous week, they got gashed by Will Shipley and Clemson. So I'm beginning to believe that Syracuse's pass D is good, and the rush D is not so good. So, yeah, Abaconda, certainly a good play. If you want to pay up at running back, that's probably it. I don't think I'll get there anywhere else on Pitt. Probably just Abaconda. I don't really want to play. I think Slovis is terrible, and I don't want to play on any of their receivers. I think Syracuse does have a good pass D, so it begins and ends with Abaconda for me. Yeah,
I'm playing him. I'm playing him in all formats. I just can't really get like Tucker $1,000 cheaper. Like Abanikanda, fantastic in all formats, especially cash. I'd like him and Mo. Just start there. Syracuse's defense, last 2 weeks, they played Clemson and Notre Dame. Those are some physical ass football teams. You're now playing a Pitt team that hasn't been able to do anything, has been a joke, except they want to play Pat Narduzzi's style of running the football, being physical. It's been a joke. It's not going to be a joke this weekend because it's going to be the one time this year it pays off, or pretty much the only time. That and against Virginia Tech. Congrats on beating that terrible Virginia Tech team. They can't stop the run, man. They're bad. The 119th in rushing success rate. They're great against the pass. 4th in EPA against the pass. You nailed it. They have a good secondary, and they lost everything up front from a year ago. Last 2 weeks, they gave up 290 yards and 3 rushing scores to Clemson, 246 and 3 rushing scores to Notre Dame. Pitt's going to do what they want to do here. It's Abanikanda and nothing else for me. All right, Penn State versus Indiana. Kevin, do we have any weather in this one? I know it's in the Midwest.
Well, it is in the Midwest. So when I looked earlier, it just said sunny, and I didn't see much wind, but from what I hear, there's going to be wind there. So I would monitor that for sure, just to see. I don't know if it'll be as bad as it is in Evanston with the Northwestern game, but still definitely check it out because this could be a game where Penn State just runs the hell out of the ball. They have obviously two stud freshman backs, which they could just line up and run. Clifford can run a bit. So I don't know. It's going to be hard to see for this game. My boy Parker Washington finally had a good game last week. Finally, I've been waiting for that all year. They finally targeted him. He was a beast. The kid he's just really good. He's really athletic. He runs really good routes. I think he's going to play in the NFL. I think he's definitely going to do some things. And he finally did something. So if you're going to play the Penn State passing game, I think he's clearly finally becoming that alpha dog, which I thought he would be earlier. So he's certainly worth a play again if the wind isn't bad. And you could also go either way. Actually, if you look at the running backs, so Singleton gets all the publicity as the high. They're both highly recruited or highly touted, but Allen has actually been better. So and he's $100 cheaper. But Allen he's looked better. So watching the games, he's looked better. He looks like he's just a more physical runner than Singleton is. Singleton, I think, is the home run guy. Yeah, he is.
He's like Najee Harris. He's bouncing too much.
Yeah, and Allen just plunges it in there, and I think he's been a better back. So I don't mind playing Allen at 4.9 if you want to pay down for a back.
Yeah, I think they're only going to have 2 scholarship running backs they only have 2 practicing this week. So that could mean a decent workload here, especially if there is wind. So I think weather's going to be very, very, very important this one. Reason being, Indiana is actually really good against the rush. They're 12th in rushing EPA, 13th in rushing explosiveness. And then when you have 2 guys splitting the workload, that doesn't make me feel ooey gooey inside. But if Penn State's going to blow them out, which they might do, because we'll talk about some Indiana factors on the other side of things, but it's really not pretty. That's interesting. Indiana has been absolutely terrible against the pass. So again, weather permitting, they were so bad I even played a Tagovailoa against them. I played Tua's little brother at one point. They're 117th in coverage grade per PFF, 114th in EPA against the pass, 121st in passing success rate. Yikes. I agree with you. Parker Washington's going to be in the NFL. The workload has been really good recently. So if that continues, I kind of think it probably will, because I think it probably should. That's interesting. All right. Looking at the other side, Indiana. I pulled up a few, Indiana articles to check in what's going on. First thing I saw, Cam Camper, their star receivers, out for the year. Second thing I saw, Tom Allen giving an interview where he says, quote unquote, "I'm just saying that you'll have to wait until Saturday to see who our starting quarterback is going to be." So, ... So that's Indiana.
Yeah, and it really doesn't matter who it is.
No.
Obviously, there's if you're playing Indiana guys, you're probably not playing this right. So
probably. They did mention Kobe a few times. Anderson Kobe as a guy who's going to step up and probably get more workload, but he's 4.3. Like if he was mid-priced, sure, but 4.3, a little tougher. All right, next we have an American Conference game that could possibly be a good one. UCF's always interesting. Playing at Memphis. What are we thinking here, Kevin?
Yeah, over under 59. UCF's a 3.5 point favorite, so obviously there will be some points, and it is the AAC. So I think last year when they played, it was like 59, 50. It was over 100 total points and just an insane amount of yards. I don't think we'll get there this year, but I think we'll certainly have some points and some yards. UCF, Plumlee, I don't know if he's going to play. And I don't know that it matters if he plays, because he's been pretty bad the past couple weeks. He just hasn't been good, and so I don't think it matters. Running back wise, actually, they have a guy I like. I do like RJ Harvey. He's been really good, actually. He had 18 carries, 2 touchdowns last week. He still, obviously, Bowser still gets carries, but Harvey has looked better. He's just looked more explosive than Bowser has. So I don't mind him at his price for sure. And Harvey's actually been catching some passes too. So I don't mind Harvey. I think you could pay down there. The receiving room is tough. Like O'Keefe looked like he was back to being the number 1 guy, and then 2 weeks ago he had 1 catch, right? So last week he had a decent game. He got more involved. They actually ran him. I think he had 5 or 6 carries, so they ran him a bit. So I can see it, but I'm not real confident in it. Kobe Hudson actually has been the most consistent guy. But again, he's a little too high priced. I don't really want to pay that price for him. It's just too expensive for me to pay for him. They still have Javon Baker. So I think they're going to score points, but I don't know where it's coming from. So the only guy I probably have interest in, like I said, is Harvey at running back on the UCF side. Yeah,
I really like playing people against this Memphis defense, because I think they're really bad, 90th in success rate overall, really bad against the pass, especially 108th in success rate against the pass. And their defensive line causes absolutely no havoc. So let's the quarterback just kind of sit there and pass. And that's not really what I want to hear against UCF, I guess, as far as a smash play goes, because yeah, John Reese Plumlee likes to run around. Looks like a pretty nasty concussion. I'm not really sure if they're going to play him in this one or not. I think they should be able to win no matter what. But Mikey Keene really does not impress me very much as a quarterback. I'm sure he's improved since he was a freshman, but some really, really tough watches there last year. And they have 3 wide receivers, so they're going to split the workload, I guess. Oh, I mean, I don't know. I guess Hudson's my favorite. I thought you hit it pretty well. It's really hard to choose one. I think it gets a terrible defense like this. I think they're all fine in tournaments, is what I would say. And then yeah, RJ Harvey was a good shout out. I think it's pretty clear. The staff wants to get him the ball more. In a huge game against Cincinnati, he carried the ball 18 times and had a reception. He's been really good in the receiving game when it gets usage there. So yeah, I think Harvey should continue to see some more workload. And if you really need to pay down at running back, where there's not a lot of great options this week, there's really not a lot of been liking paying down. I think Harvey actually could be in the player pool this week. All right, looking at Memphis. UCF's defense has been pretty good, but you can still get them on occasion. So what are we thinking here for Memphis at home?
Yeah, I actually like Hennigan a little bit at 6.4. He's averaged basically 30 DraftKings points the past 2 weeks. This Memphis team is not the Memphis team of old, right? They don't have great success running the ball when they had Kenneth Gainwell and those guys. They're just kind of blah as far as the running game goes. So I think Hennigan can throw for 302 or 3. So I don't mind him as a tournament play at 6.4. I think he'll be pretty low owned, which is always good. I don't think a lot of people have a lot of confidence in him. Like I said, I don't generally play the Memphis running backs because they're not the Memphis running backs we're accustomed to seeing in fantasy circles. So won't have anybody there, and even their receivers, they don't have anybody. They don't have their Anthony Millers. They don't have those guys anymore. So if I'm playing, if I'm playing Hennigan, I'm probably playing him naked because there's really no need to stack him. So the receivers are kind of a crapshoot. Really, I don't have any good read on any of their receivers.
Yeah, I just don't think their receivers are great. Hennigan's going to throw the ball a lot, and he's 6.4K, so I don't love Hennigan, but that's just a really good price for a guy who's going to throw the ball that much. I guess there's a potential. There's like a letdown spot here for UCF after playing Cincinnati and now going on the road against a team that can throw the ball pretty well. But yeah, the issue is I'm not going to stack him. I don't like these options, and the running game hasn't been good. All right, Kevin, that brings us to the end of the slate, and I'm ready to hop in bed, grab some tea, go to sleep, watching some Rice versus UTEP football, baby. Anything you got for the people before we get out of here?
I think it's a running back week, so I don't generally do it a lot, but I think this will be the week I play some 4 running back lineups. It's ripe for it. So the quarterbacks are not great. So I certainly think you're going to play 3 running backs and possibly 4.
I mean, it's really hard to not play Abanikanda.
Yeah.
Not Williams. Mo, Kendra Miller, Reese,
and a chain.
A-Chain, Spears. Yeah. There's 5 guys. It's almost impossible not to play them. So it's going to be a mess figuring that one out. But yeah, for sure, at least 3 running backs for me. Easy on that one.
Yep. So,
all right, guys, we'll be back next week. As always, Daily Bread Media. JD here. Kevin signing off. Have a great weekend. Enjoy week 10.